Now that you know what angles to shoot from, the question is how much you actually show within the frame and how close you are to the subject. Different shot sizes can have a massive impact on your audience's emotional response, which in turn can greatly influence your engagement rate. An extreme wide shot, also called an ultra-wide shot, places the subject so small in the frame that the environment completely dominates. The focus is not on who the subject is, but on where they are and how tiny or vulnerable they appear within that space. If there's no visible character or object, it simply becomes a pure environmental shot. And this is actually very common when used as an establishing shot, which we'll talk about later. This shot often makes the audience step back and absorb the world before zooming into the story. Because of its distant viewpoint, it naturally pulls emotional attention toward the setting and atmosphere, rather than the character's expression or dialogue. Extreme wide shots establish a sense of massive scale and scope, letting the audience understand the world the character inhabits. They visually communicate isolation, smallness, or insignificance of a character in contrast to their surroundings. They create an epic cinematic feeling that can make a scene feel larger than life, and they emphasize the relationship between the subject and the vast environment. Rather than focusing on the subject alone, use extreme wide shots at the start of a scene or film to create a striking opening and establish location. The scale immediately sets the tone and context for everything that follows. Deploy this framing when you want to show characters being dwarfed by nature, architecture, or circumstances. The contrast between human scale and environmental scale tells a story without words. Choose extreme wides to create feelings of loneliness, freedom, or adventure. The emotional impact shifts depending on context. The same framing can feel isolating or liberating. You can use this shot when introducing remote, dramatic, or overwhelming environments. Deserts, mountains, oceans, massive structures all benefit from being shown in their full, imposing glory before we move closer to the human story within them. A wide shot lets us see the subject and their environment, close enough to recognize them clearly, but wide enough to understand the world they're in. Usually we aim for the subject to take up about a third to half of the frame's height, depending on their relation to their environment. Wide shots show how your subject fits into their space. They quietly communicate personality, lifestyle, and status. You're not just showing who they are, you're showing where they are and what that says about them. This is environmental storytelling. The space speaks too. A cluttered background might suggest someone busy, creative, maybe even a little chaotic. A sleek, minimal space could suggest focus, professionalism, or a modern mindset. The wide shot gives the audience room to read between the lines. These shots also help your content breathe. They create space, make things feel cinematic, and give your viewer time to absorb information without getting overwhelmed. Showing someone in their element is a natural fit for wide framing. The environment becomes part of their identity. Highlighting expertise through environment works powerfully here. A chef in their kitchen, an artist in their studio, an entrepreneur in their workspace. The space validates their authority. Conveying a sense of scale requires the wide perspective. Whether it's a massive production facility or an intimate home office, the frame tells us about magnitude and scope. And introducing someone's world before moving in closer creates a natural visual progression. Start wide to establish context, then move closer for connection. The wide shot is your foundation. The cowboy shot frames the subject from roughly the knees up. It balances character focus with environmental context, giving you the best of both worlds, enough closeness to read emotion and body language, while maintaining awareness of where the character exists in space. Cowboy shots show important body language while maintaining context. You can see facial expressions, but you also see posture, stance, and how the character holds themselves. They allow for full gesture visibility. Hands, arms, and upper body movements remain in frame, making communication more complete. They create comfortable middle ground intimacy. You're close enough to feel connected, but not so close that the frame feels claustrophobic, and they're perfect for group interactions. Multiple subjects can share the frame naturally without feeling cramped or distant. Use cowboy shots for group conversations where environment matters. The framing accommodates multiple people while keeping context visible. Choose this shot for scenes requiring both intimacy and context. When facial expressions matter, but so does the space around the character, this is your solution. The framing captures readiness and tension perfectly. The medium shot is the workhorse of filmmaking, storytelling, and advertising. It frames the subject from roughly the waist up, just like if you were having a conversation with someone at a comfortable distance. This is the sweet spot for connection. Medium shots give you facial expressions and body language while still showing a bit of the environment. It's close enough to feel personal, but not so close that it's intense. You get the full range of human communication, gestures, posture, expression, and all the things that help you build trust and feel more connected. Medium shots balance intimacy with information perfectly. They capture facial expressions and upper body language clearly. They feel like natural conversation distance, roughly 3 to 4 feet, the same distance we naturally maintain in comfortable social interactions. And they provide maximum editing flexibility, working seamlessly with wider shots and close-ups in your edit. This distance feels natural, like you're chatting with someone across a table. It's intimate without being invasive. Your audience feels like they're in the conversation, not watching it from the sidelines. This shot gives the audience both emotional access to the character and a sense of their world, striking a balance between connection and context. Use medium shots for dialogue scenes between characters. This is your default framing for conversations that need to feel genuine and engaged. Deploy this shot for moments of emotional nuance that don't require a close-up. When the emotion is important, but doesn't need extreme intimacy, the medium shot delivers. Choose medium framing for scenes where gestures, posture, or movement help tell the story. Body language communicates as much as facial expressions in this range. Use this shot to maintain a conversational tone between characters and the audience. The framing creates connection without manipulation, and reach for the medium shot when you want to blend intimacy with situational awareness. It keeps characters grounded in their environment while maintaining emotional accessibility. A medium close-up frames the subject from the chest or shoulders up, placing their face and upper torso as the dominant elements in the frame. It's tighter and more intimate than a medium shot, yet not as intense or isolating as a full close-up. This framing is widely used because it strikes a balance between emotional connection and contextual presence. The viewer can clearly read expressions while still perceiving some posture, subtle gestures, and the immediate environment around the subject. This makes it ideal for dialogue-driven scenes where emotions matter but you still want a sense of physical presence. Medium close-ups increase intimacy while showing some body language. You're close enough to read every facial nuance, but you haven't eliminated the body entirely. They focus more attention on facial expressions. The face becomes the primary information source, but shoulders and chest remain visible for context. They create stronger emotional connection than medium shots. By moving closer, you invite the audience to lean in and pay closer attention, and they allow natural hand gestures in the lower frame. Hands entering frame from below still feel organic and conversational at this distance. Use medium close-ups for emotional dialogue, requiring more connection. When the words matter and the feelings behind them need visibility, this framing delivers. It's close enough to feel personal, but professional enough to maintain credibility. This framing serves as a natural bridge between medium shots and extreme close-ups, and use this framing for scenes where subtle facial expressions are crucial. Micro-expressions, slight changes in eyes, small shifts in mouth position all become readable at this distance without feeling invasive. A close-up tightly frames the subject's face, typically from the shoulders or collarbone up so that the face fills most of the frame. This shot brings the audience into direct emotional proximity with the character, leaving almost no visual context beyond their expression. Because it isolates the face so strongly, the close-up is one of the most emotionally powerful and revealing shot sizes in filmmaking. It invites the audience to notice every micro-expression, flicker of emotion, or shift in eye movement, forcing them to connect directly with the character's inner world. It also removes environmental distractions, allowing performance and dialogue to take full control of the viewer's attention. Close-ups create maximum intimacy and emotional connection. There's nowhere for the audience to look except directly at the character's face and emotion. They force the audience to read micro-expressions. Every subtle shift in expression becomes magnified and impossible to miss. They eliminate environmental distractions completely. Nothing exists in this frame except the human face and the emotion it carries, and they amplify the impact of dialogue and performance. When the face fills the frame, words carry more weight and performances feel more intense. Use close-ups for emotional peaks and climactic moments. When the story reaches its highest emotional point, the close-up delivers that intensity directly. Deploy this shot for important dialogue that cannot be missed. When words carry critical information or emotional weight, frame them tightly. Choose close-ups for character reactions and responses. Sometimes the reaction is more important than the action, and the close-up captures that perfectly. Use this framing for creating tension or revealing secrets. The intensity of a close-up heightens drama and makes revelations more impactful. And reach for close-ups for call-to-action statements requiring impact. When you need the audience to feel the weight of what's being said, eliminate everything except the speaker's conviction. Close-ups demand perfect focus, usually on the eyes. They require stable footage because any shake is magnified. Camera movement that might be invisible in a wide shot becomes distracting in a close-up. They need excellent lighting because flaws become visible. Skin texture, lighting inconsistencies, and technical imperfections all show at this proximity. And they require nuanced performance because everything shows. Overacting becomes obvious, and authenticity becomes essential. The close-up reveals truth, or the lack of it. An extreme close-up isolates only a very small portion of the subject, often just the eyes, mouth, hands, or a single object detail, filling the frame entirely with that element. This shot is highly selective and intensely focused, cutting out all other visual information. Because it excludes almost everything else, an extreme close-up feels hyper-intimate and often intense, forcing the audience's full attention onto one detail and amplifying its dramatic importance. Even the smallest movement or emotion becomes monumental, which makes this shot powerful, but also something to use sparingly for maximum impact. Extreme close-ups create intense focus on specific elements. Nothing else exists in the frame except what you've chosen to show. They eliminate everything except crucial details. Context disappears, and only the essential remains. They force hyper-attention from the audience. There's literally nowhere else to look. The detail you've isolated demands complete focus. And they can be intimate, dramatic, or revealing, depending on context. The same framing technique serves vastly different emotional purposes based on what you choose to show. Use extreme close-ups for extreme emotional moments. Deploy this shot for revealing crucial story information. Choose extreme close-ups for building suspense or tension. The restriction of visual information creates unease and anticipation. Use this framing for creating dramatic emphasis. Eyes reading a devastating message. Eyes during realization moments are classic extreme close-up subjects. The moment someone understands something profound shows most clearly in their eyes. Hands performing critical actions benefit from this framing. Actions with consequences, signing a document, letting go of something, gain weight when isolated. Lips during intimate or threatening dialogue create tension. Removing the rest of the face makes words feel more loaded, whether whispered secrets or threatening ultimatums. The extreme close-up tells the audience this detail matters desperately.